Howdy guys, welcome back to another one. Numerous people have told me they want to see us do some more duplex shells, so that's what we're doing here. We are using 10 gauge, well not using, we are doing a 10 gauge shell this time. It's going to be a 50-50 mix of number 2 steel and BB steel. Both are zinc plated, I have them right here. This is the number 2, again zinc plated. So 2s and BB, that is a very common size that you see in factory shells. I personally like it. We recently did a test using number 3 and BB, and that did very, very well. So, yeah, 2s and BBs it is. And this being 10 gauge, you know it's going to pattern well. I don't know what it is about 10 gauge, but just about anything we've ever fed it, it's gave us really good results on paper. Anyway, the components we're using are, yeah, I know, Alliance steel. This stuff has once again become very, very hard to find. I knew the day would come. Just a few months ago, you could go to, well, I can't say exactly where, but anywhere online and find this. It was in stock everywhere. So, yeah, back in, I believe, May, Alliant announced that they were suspending their commercial powder, you know what. So it's making it very hard to get Alliant powder right now of any kind, especially steel. This one has probably been the consistently hardest to get. But we are using it today. I'm sure most of you who put together 10 gauge will have this powder. It's a staple 10 gauge powder. Anyway, put that over here. Oh yeah, number of the day is 40. Originally it was 39, but I wanted 1400 FPS with this assembly. The listed is 1385 with 10,100 PSI. That is a good bit away from 10 gauge max, which is 11,000 PSI. I feel like upping it 1 grain isn't going to cause any major catastrophic event to happen, especially if you're using a modern 10 gauge. I have heard from people that are well in the know, if you want to call it that, that modern 3.5 inch 10 gauge shotguns should be rated for the same pressure as 3.5 inch 12 gauge, which is 14,000 PSI or even higher. Imagine a 12 gauge, the biggest, heaviest, beefiest 12 gauge you've ever seen, and up that by 15 to 20%, you have a 10 gauge. They typically weigh 9 to 12.5 pounds depending on model. Some doubles can weigh even more than that. Yeah, 10 gauges are built like tanks. There is no reason that a modern 10 gauge should be limited to only 11,000 PSI, but you guys have heard me go on that rant before. Let's move on. The hull we're using is a brand new Remington, and it does have a Federal 209A in it. This dust right here is already in the hull. I don't want to spill it, but yeah, 209A in a brand new Remington. You could use one spire too, obviously. The recipe calls for a BPD 10 wad, which I have here. This one is already slit, and yes, I did have this in a shell before, but I broke it back down and, well, I kind of mangled the top of the wad pulling it out. That's okay. All of the shot will be contained inside of the BPD 10 wad. It is, in case you care, 4-pedal, 3/4 cut, and I used Gary Caskey's 4-pedal adjustable wad slitter. Right now it's set to do a full cut. You just turn this brass dial down here at the bottom. I'll give it a few cranks, and, well, that raised it. Wrong way. Turn it back the other way. I just want to show you guys how this thing works in case you've never seen it. Anyway, facebook.com/gary.d.caskey if you want any of his tools. Now you can see it's set to do a 4-pedal, 3/4 cut. After that, we are using a 1/4 inch 20 gauge felt filler wad. Yeah, this is felt. You could use fiber or cork, whatever you have. I prefer the felt. They seem to be the sturdiest and most rigid, and they hold up the best. I wouldn't use a nitro card for cushion filler. If you're wanting cushion, nitro cards don't really provide any cushion. They do provide stack height though. So for the 2s, I am using, this is going to be difficult. They're just zinc plated 2s, nothing special at all there. And for the BB, well, it's nothing special either. It's just zinc plated BBs. That's all it is. Lastly, we are using an overshot card. This is actually just a 10 gauge nitro card. I've split it into one section. Now that I look at it, that one section may be a half of one section. It doesn't look like it's full thickness to me, but we'll see whenever we get to that stage. But like I said, the magic dust is already in here. BPD 10 wad. Set that down in there. I'm going to use the press to compress that. Alliance steel does like a little bit of compression. Not too much, but some. Looks good to me. Drop our 1/4 inch 20 gauge felt wad in there, and because this is 10 gauge, my fingers actually fit inside the hull. There you go. Our 1/4 inch 20 gauge felt is in place. Now, smaller shot on the bottom is traditional. We have found that actually, in modern shotguns anyway, I'm not sure about older ones, black powder, that the bigger shot on the bottom actually patterns better for us. I know that's not traditional, but that's just what we found multiple times. But I'm doing this one traditionally, so smaller shot on the bottom. Give that a shake, make sure they're all down there good. And then we have our BB on top. And all of it is inside the shot cup. This is going to be very hard to show you. Maybe you can see the top of the wad in there. I'm not sure. I cannot see it on my phone screen. But all of the shot is inside of that wad. Now, I really don't think this is enough of an overshot card. Maybe you can see the stack height. It ends about, getting my light so I can see it better, about right here. We need a little bit more overshot card, I think. And sure enough, we do. That is pretty far down in there. Now you can see it better. Right here is where it ends. So I'm going to grab another overshot card. Luckily enough, I have one right here. Throw that on there. Now it looks to be correct. Backstation of the Leload-All. This is my 10 gauge Leload-All. In case you don't know, I did convert this from a 12. Give it the pre-crimp. This is 6-point. The backstation of the Leload-All is a 6-point crimp. Looks good to me. Now for the Rebacitor. Pull down. And as you guys can see, when I final crimp this, it's going to look really, really nice. That is perfectly even, no hole in the middle. It is not lopsided anywhere, but it has no taper at all. It's kind of mushroomed out. That's what the Rebacitor does. It creates a crease around the top of the hull right here. That lets you get factory style shells whenever you crimp it. Speaking of that, final crimp of the press, what I like to do is pull down, lift up, turn, pull down, turn the hull, pull down. Repeat that a few times, and that seems to get a more uniform overall crimp. And as you guys can see, there ain't nothing wrong with that. It's perfect. No need for a Got BN2 on this right here to help it with the taper. This being originally 12 gauge, up at the very top of the final crimp tube, it is still about 12 gauge diameter. And that actually, you can't really see it on camera, but, well, maybe right here you can. It actually tapers the shell just a little bit. Not much, but I've never had a problem in my BPS pump cycling these. It's not belled out anymore. I don't know about a semi-auto because I don't have a 10 gauge semi-auto, neither does Josh, yet. One thing I didn't show very well is the top of the hull is not wavy anywhere. I notice sometimes with a mech, this press, Pons Bis Warren, doesn't really matter what press, on new hulls you can end up with a wavy top, and that's just due to it being not a precision instrument, if you want to call it that. No press really is, but this right here is a milled out piece of steel, and it forces the plastic into complete uniformity. Yeah, good looking shell. By the way, this is about 1400 FPS. With 39, it's 1400 or 1385. 14, I imagine, or 40. Let me do that again. 39 was listed at 1385 FPS. I'd imagine 40 is going about 1420. But good looking shell. Seems I failed to mention this earlier, but what's the reason for a duplex shell, 2 different sizes? You could have a triplex too, triplex, whatever you want to call it. I'm actually not too sure. With 3 sizes, quadplex would be 4. Anyway, the whole point behind it is, with steel shot anyway, better pattern density with the smaller pellets and a lot more knockdown power with the larger ones. They carry more energy a little bit further. BB isn't the biggest size of steel, but it's still pretty big. 2 is a very common size for ducks. When you step up to BB, people typically hunt geese with that, but you can hunt ducks with it too. The BB will, again, carry more energy at a longer range, has more of that knockdown power that everybody loves so much. One more thing I want to mention. You guys that have 10s probably know this, so I'm just preaching to the choir, but if you don't know, you ain't got a 10 gauge, you've never shot one and you're watching this, they have a bore diameter of 7.75. They can go a little bit bigger, a little bit smaller, depending on manufacturer, but theoretically it's 7.75. That is bigger than 12 gauge, therefore you can use bigger steel shot pellets in 10 gauge with a better pattern. 10s throw steel really, really well. One more thing I want to mention, if you have federal hulls and you're wanting to do this assembly, you don't need the overshot card. Keep everything the same, except for skip the overshot card, and this is what it looks like. Really, really nice too. If you don't know, Federals are shorter than Remingtons by a good bit. The rims are lined up down here. You can see that, kinda, I hope. You can see that the Remington here is about a 1/16 inch taller than the Federal. Yeah, these are actually, when you measure them with a set of calipers, they come out to 3.55 inches sometimes. It can vary between 3.52 to 3.55. Either way, they're over 3.5 inches, which is fine. That is still within spec. But anyway, guys, I think I'm going to get out of your hair. I'm going to finish my blueberry cobbler coffee, which is delicious, but please like and subscribe. We always appreciate that. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down in the comment section below, and we'll get back to you. And if you want to, go check out our Patreon. It's as low as $1 a month, and you guys get early access to content. A link to that, as well as a link to our Instagram, Rumble, and merch store will be in the description below. But other than that, you guys take it easy, and we'll see you in the next one.